they've built in such an automation into these factories and the systems that we just don't have here yet. So a ton of it's actually automated out to where you're kind of getting around some of those labor costs. Actually, it is still so much more automated than we have here. So that's something that can be fixed though, which is a good thing.
Welcome to Manufacturing Insiders. I have Nick Frank with me. He is the CEO and founder of Knectiv, which is a global electronics manufacturer. He is an expert in global contract manufacturing, sourcing global suppliers, as well as an expert in the product development lifecycle. And I'm excited to pick your brain today, Nick. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, thanks, Nate. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Before we jump into it, just a quick note. If you enjoy the content with Manufacturing Insiders, please hit that subscribe button. Hit the like on this post if you're watching a clip. And if you're interested in joining Manufacturing Insiders and you have some insights you think other manufacturing leaders would enjoy hearing, give us a message at manufacturinginsiders.com. So, Nick, how did you get started? Because your background really isn't in manufacturing, and now you're running a manufacturing operation.
Yeah. No, thanks, Nate. I've been in manufacturing for about 20 years now. So I actually started in Switzerland, where I co-founded a contract manufacturing firm. So we were building anything from Airbus electronics to Olympic Swiss timer watches. I spent a lot of time in China early on because we were actually, I guess, originally funded and supported by a Chinese contract manufacturer. So that's where I initially met my original co-founder out there in Switzerland. We started this company, and that's kind of where I started cutting my teeth, kind of helping Swiss and European companies remain Swiss and European made, but leveraging our manufacturing operations in China. So that's kind of where it all started out, and where we, like I said, cut our teeth with very demanding Swiss customers.
Yeah. I mean, it's really the same theme here in the U.S. I mean, I've talked to quite a few OEMs that say they try to quote projects in the U.S., but sometimes it's just not feasible. And that's not, something negative to say about the, American companies, just that, because of a number of factors, which I actually do think there's a couple of them we're responsible for, but there are factors out of our control. But it is necessary. You got to contract overseas sometimes. When do you find that to be the case?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly on a case-by-case basis. We try to look at every project and see what's going to make the most sense for the customer. So we're not automatically guiding them, hey, you need to go to China, you need to go here or there. We do have partners here in the U.S. We've got some in Mexico. So sometimes that is the right option. A lot of times it depends on their business model. So if it's more of a low margin type of product, high volume, they may have a hard time competing. You're just not going to find those kind of prices here. It's just, we're still not quite there in the US right now. So kind of leveraging the high volume, the ecosystem depth, the purchasing power of some of the offshore manufacturing options, it's going to allow you to, if needed, it's kind of save those costs, right? So sometimes medical devices, maybe it's a little bit different. It's a super high margin type of business. It may make more sense, even if you're paying a little bit more, to make more of that over here. And then it also depends on what is the product, what's the type of material you're using, what are the components, where are they coming from? All those things are going to kind of go into this basket, and we're going to try to figure out, hey, what's really the best route for you? And right. So it's just a case-by-case basis we have to look at.
So, when I look at the region, where I live and where my business is located, Erie, Pennsylvania, it's a very, heavily manufacturing town. A little bit south of us, you have Meadville, PA, which, I was just talking to somebody today about how you can drive down the main strip there and you're going to see, metal stamping, injection molding, engineering, CNC machining, on and on and on. So it seems like we do have the ecosystem, I guess, when you're talking about just pure capabilities. Why do you think it is that we can't compete with some of these other countries?
Yeah, it's a good question. Well, there's a couple of things that jump to mind. I think, we think of China or some of these ecosystems, and we think about cheap labor, but that's not really the case anymore. I mean, the prices
Right.
of labor, for example, in China, have gone up just a ton over the years, right? The salaries and everything have really risen.
Right.
I think what people don't realize is in China, they have they've built in such an automation into these factories and the systems that we just don't have here yet. So a ton of it's actually automated out to where you're kind of getting around some of those labor costs actually, and
Right.
so that's a big part of it. And then you think about, where do some of these materials come from that you're having to, let's just say you're making it here in the U.S. You're actually importing a lot of it,
Right.
and so, that's another issue. You're having to bring it over, then build it. You've got different regulations. You've got different, expenses and salaries to pay for, overheads, and so those are some of the things that go into it, I would say. And
Yeah.
I think it's a little bit deeper than that, but those are the first kind of couple of things that come to mind. It is still so much more automated than we have here. So that's something that can be fixed though, which is a good thing.
It is, yeah, and I mean that's kind of what the point I was driving towards. So it surprises me though that China advanced their automation capabilities so quickly and efficiently, given the fact that they did have significantly lower labor costs. So, you would think that us, with our higher labor cost, would have been a lot more on the ball with the automation story.
Yeah, you would think. And so I don't know the entire kind of backstory and how it all came about. I mean, obviously, we hear about, right, Apple shipped a lot of their kind of know-how and capabilities out early on, and kind of helped build up that ecosystem there. And they've just been continuing to kind of double down. I think they have kind of seen, just through just all the hours and the work that they've put in manufacturing in general, and all the money that has gone into manufacturing, they see themselves as the manufacturing hub.
Mm-hmm.
They've just invested heavily and had a very eye out for the future and understanding where it's going. And it's just been kind of this one single thread line of like, hey, this is where it's going. This is what we're doing, and they've been able to kind of capitalize that on
Yeah.
that. And I think that's maybe, I mean, that's politics aside, that's a whole other story. But we do, I think, can be a little bit more short-sighted sometimes here. And we're on political cycles, we're on different things. We're not able to kind of run things through in a straight line, and
Exactly.
um, they may not have that issue for different reasons.
When you're a dictator, you have the convenience of longevity. Uh, but yeah, there's advantages to that, and obviously that causes a lot of problems in our country. Having, every 4 years you have a new administration that has a completely different plan for the future of America, and so they immediately undo everything that the previous one did. And yeah, it's not a great situation. But that is what it comes from, is the top down. You know, in like you said, they decided they were going to be a manufacturing hub. We're still waffling on that. I mean, even like a town like Erie that I said has, some of the oldest manufacturing roots in the United States. The leaders here are still kind of like, oh, well, we want to be a tourist town. We want to be this, we want to be that. And it's like, no, guys, like double down on what you're good at, And so, yeah, I think that's a big part of it. So,
Mhm.
when you're heavily involved in the electronic space, and when it comes to imports, electronics is probably percentage wise a lot higher than a lot of other types of manufacturing. So, where do you see an opportunity in the US for us to ramp up production of a given type of electronics, semiconductors, things of that nature, and be competitive? I know there's situations where we just don't have the materials here, but I think that's not always the case.
Right. Yeah, it's a good question. I think back to my time in Switzerland, because you look at this small country that they have such a reputation for this high precision, yeah, whether it's through watches, electronics, or just this great value add, even just through chocolate. But right, so
Right.
it's building up this reputation, and so a Swiss-made product has weight. It carries a certain weight that we know,
Right.
like, hey, this is going to be high precision. This is going to be excellent quality, right? And so I don't think I don't think the U.S. wants to just manufacture everything here. That doesn't make much sense in a certain way. Just to have factories on every corner and making T-shirts and cheap gadgets and everything like that. Like,
Yep.
I think that's where it's good to kind of keep leveraging trade and international collaboration.
Yep.
I still think that's needed.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, when I think about what does that look like in the future, where are the opportunities? I think it's doubling down on certain types of technologies, maybe around data centers, the semiconductor. Obviously, I mean here in Austin and Texas in general, we're seeing a ton of that, right? Just
Yep.
these new factories. Some of those are coming back, right? And those are going to be really key areas. Obviously strategic defense, that's out of my pay grade, but like, hey, okay, yeah, if we want to be, we should be able to make our own drones, have everything here, our own kind of defense systems, right? Let's be able to have those kind of really key strategic things be able to be made in the U.S. and then kind of build out from there.
Yep.
I think that makes sense. So yeah, I'm not sure if that really answers your question, but those are kind of
Uh,
just first couple of
yeah,
things that come to mind.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, I agree with all of that, and I think in the U.S. we need to start gravitating towards the highest value add stuff. Um, and you can, and I mean, obviously you need the defense stability. I'm looking for the right word, but you need to have some of that critical manufacturing here in the U.S. But I think a lot of it could be through partnerships, and then we focus on you know uh, you know AI integration with electronics, and we focus on just the highest value engineering, design, that sort of stuff. Um, could be a smart plan for the long term future. So when
Mhm.
someone comes, like, what looks like an ideal customer for Knectiv? What is it? Somebody that's in the early, they're just in the idea phase, and then they want to kind of take that all the way through production. What does that look like?
Yeah, so I mean, I think we really excel in helping founders, early stage enterprises, whether it's pre-seed, maybe early stage companies, go from that 0 to 1,000 units and then scale beyond, right? So
Mm-hmm.
typically that 0 to 1,000 is really difficult. It's a hard niche because you don't have the volume yet, and you're not going to be able to work with a large contract manufacturer. They're just typically not interested unless you can just really show these crazy projections. Sometimes they lock you into this minimum spend. It can be
Right.
really restrictive. And so I think we've certainly kind of found this niche where we're really able to help through working with more of like medium-sized factories that are going to be more apt and willing to take a flyer on something that's maybe not guaranteed to go huge.
Okay.
Um, but those first 1,000 units it's very time consuming. It's very hard.
Right.
You're doing a lot of prototyping, a lot of testing. Um, we're losing money on the first 1,000 units just because of all the time and hours we're putting into it.
Right.
Um, uh, but we've kind of perfected or just really streamlined the process to go through that process to then allow them to grow and scale and kind of build their business on the side, get those first 1,000 units out into the field, and then give them an opportunity to grow soon after. So
Awesome.
yeah, and we have our engineering side too, which is helpful. So we can help. If a company comes to us with either a design that's not quite done yet, or even just a concept, we can bring that all the way through. With our engineering department, get it to a manufacturable state, and then have that handoff directly to the factory that'll be making the product, which is super helpful because we can see the pitfalls early on. We're working directly with DFM. We're making sure that the designs match what actually needs to happen in the manufacturing side. So I think we add a lot of value for those early stage companies that are trying to get going off the ground from prototype through the first production runs.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, and that's always the hard part is like you said, that first 1,000 units, trying to figure out what this thing is supposed to look like, how it's supposed to function, how to design it for manufacturability. So when you have somebody come to you with an idea, maybe they just have the concept. Um, how do you how do you assess whether, do you tell them sometimes, listen, I don't think this is going to work. I don't think there's a market for what you're doing here.
Yes, we do. That's sometimes a hard conversation to have, but we do look at things almost as if you maybe think of a venture capital firm or something like that. But
Yep.
you're evaluating a business, not just a product. And right, so we're looking at the founding team. We're trying to understand what is their business plan, what's the model. Are they going to have a moat around this business? Is it just a gadget that could be copied? Is there an actual like business behind it? Is there a
Right.
path? Is there a path to funding? Are you going to survive? The financial requirements of developing this out, getting to the mold, and then all the inventory and stock. Do you have a plan for that? And so we
Yeah.
certainly try. We do want to make sure that there's a path beyond the first 100 to 1,000 units, the next and the next and the next, right? So we're definitely trying to vet that out. And
Yeah.
if they're not there yet, if they're too early for us, then we're going to try to help find partners in the ecosystem that can maybe get them in the right direction, and then hopefully be ready to get to that stage soon after.
I see. Okay. Yeah. So, given that approach, do you take any sort of a stake in these companies?
So traditionally we have not, but we are we're looking at more opportunities like that to take if we feel like we can bring a lot of value, then we do think there's an opportunity there to maybe have some type of offsetting NRE cost,
Yeah.
offsetting advisory type of, whether it's through advisory shares or just a small percentage in equity in exchange for kind of cash flowing their early R&D and manufacturing.
Yeah.
So that is something that'll probably go into effect in 2026 for select projects.
Yeah.
Because we do feel like sometimes we can really add a ton of value. If we really believe in the project, then that's something we can do, right? And so in the past, what we've done is more of like a very low interest or no interest type of loan to kind of help them get through, because a lot of times we're working in development. It's a bridge to manufacturing. At the end of the day, we're a manufacturing company. We're trying to get them into manufacturing, have long-term success. So we're trying everything we can to help them be successful. Because if they succeed, we succeed, and that's the goal for everyone.
Right. Right. Yeah, I mean, I think that model makes a lot of sense. I mean, that's honestly what I would do if I was you. In fact, with my business, I do marketing for manufacturers, and so, over the past 10 years, we've done solely, retainers for marketing, search engine optimization, those types of things. But we've seen so much success with it, generating leads for these guys, that I started to think about, well, what if we were to kind of give a discounted rate for that? And then as we generate leads for them and they generate revenue from that, we, get a percentage of that revenue. And I was amazed at the reception to it, because everybody kind of loves the idea of sort of, me having more skin in the game, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm more than comfortable with it because I know I'm going to be successful. So no, we have probably 5 or 6 companies now that I call our partnership model, and it's working out very well. In fact, the first company that we signed on with this was about a year ago, and this dude is pulling in contracts left and right. I'm like, yes, it's
Nice.
amazing. So yeah, it can work out very well. And I think for you guys, having an actual ownership stake might even be more attractive.
Yeah, agreed. And I think just to tie a bow on that, I mean, I think and for you too, you maybe early on you don't realize, but we're both in a position where you can become a strategic partner for someone, whether, for growth, for building. That is adding a ton of value, right? So we offer services, but we're not just a service company. We are a huge, kind of cog in this machine, whether you're going to be successful or not. And,
Right.
Certainly finances is a huge part of it, and the cash flow and being able to offer creative ways to help them, it can be the difference between whether they succeed or fail.
Right. Right. What would you say the biggest mistake a lot of people make in kind of early stage electronics product development?
Yeah. There's a few that kind of come to mind, right? So you see a lot of people just chasing the lowest quote, for example, not understanding that there's so much more that goes into the pricing. And so, I'm thinking more of like, China here. You look at a founder that they want to save money, and so they're just looking for the cheapest possible option.
Hmm.
They find a factory through a friend of a friend, or they hear somebody that gives them this referral, and they try to do it themselves, thinking like this is the best way to do it. But at the end of the day, they end up, just because they don't have this manufacturing expertise and don't know what to expect and don't know how to avoid these pitfalls, they end up just spending so much extra time, money, energy, all of these things when they should be focusing on building their business and
Right.
not overseeing every little aspect of that. So that's like an early stage kind of thing we see.
Yep.
And that also goes towards like trying to juggle too many vendors, right? So like, oh, I've got a PCB manufacturer over here, I've got an enclosure manufacturer, I've got someone that's doing assembly, I've got someone doing packaging, and if they're all over the place, it's kind of hard to keep those things lined up,
Right.
keep your timelines as it's supposed to be. So it's like, hey, let's bring that all under one umbrella, and
Yep.
we'll keep it nice and streamlined, right?
Right.
So that's another one. Kind of ignoring DFM, design for manufacturability. Uh, okay, you're able to get a prototype, it works, that's great. That does not mean you're ready for production. It doesn't mean
Right.
that things aren't going to be failing in the field. It doesn't mean you're ready to sell to a customer who's going to pay money for your product. Um, and so a lot of times they again, cutting corners, saving costs on design, whether that's going directly to a Chinese manufacturer that's going to help them uh, design their product. Maybe they might lose their IP. They may not actually own their stuff. It's not done
Hmm.
the way they want, or they hire someone else, and it's just maybe it hasn't gone through DFM, and they just end up losing a ton of time. They have to redo the designs
Yep.
before they're ready to go into manufacturing, and so you can't cut corners. I mean, that's every step is really important. You need to have really professional designs going into it. You need to have really good manufacturing documentation ready to hand over to a factory.
Yep.
Ideally, if you hand something over to the factory, they should be able to just make it with everything you've given them without like, you can't improvise on a production line, right? You can't just suddenly try to figure stuff out as you go. These things have to be locked and set. And
Right.
so, yeah, those are kind of some of a few things that come to mind that we see, unfortunately,
Yeah.
all too often.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, yeah, and having your fingers in every, every phase of that, from the design to the actual production, I can certainly see a lot of value in that. And I can also see, if you were just going straight to China with your design, they aren't going to tell you, hey, I don't think this is going to work when you try to take this to market. They're going to be like, okay, yeah, we'll make that for you. But I
Exactly.
think it's a lot of value to have somebody like you that will kind of give people the reality if that's not the case. Um, I had a question, just lost it. So, oh, I remember now. So I was going to ask you, how do you let's just say somebody's starting from really scratch. They have a concept, but they need to have an actual CAD model created, and then design for manufacturability, etc. How do you determine what the cost is going to be of that, from I guess, to getting the first unit out, the first prototype? Like, how do you assess cost for these phases?
Yeah. So, we'll typically um, we'll work through maybe a product requirements document, for example, to really define in detail what does this actually need to look like at the end when it does go into manufacturing. And so we're trying to define, all right, what's the minimum viable product here that you want to get to. We're trying
Right.
to understand their COGS targets, like what does this need to cost, because they may want to they may want to build a Ferrari, but they've got a Fiat budget, right? So we can't do
Right.
that. All right. So we're trying to like figure all that out. And so what we'll do then is like, all right, you're here, you're at point A. you need to be at point B to go into manufacturing with this product that you're envisioning, that you're going to sell to customers. And so then we'll take that, we'll look at that and say, all right, well, here's everything that has to happen. We're going to have to do a discovery phase. We're going to like get all the requirements out, and then after we're going to have to build, design the PCB, create the enclosure. There's firmware involved that we're going to have to write. All of these types of things that are going to have to go into getting to that manufacturable state. And that'll include making a couple of prototypes ourselves, making sure they work, making sure the firmware is dialed in. And then we'll set aside a small budget for like, all right, and we're also going to create manufacturing documentation that you can then just take. Here's your file dump. You can take this to us. We'll keep working with you. Or if you want to take it to your manufacturer, here it is. And it's ready. It's ready to go. And they should be able to quote this and make it for you. At that point.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, this is every proposal call I've been on, I get this question, but, and so I know it's difficult to answer, but when you look at that, getting the first unit out the door, is there any way to say like kind of what an average cost range would be? I know every electronic is different size, different components, different complexity. Same thing with websites. But is there any kind of cost range you could give us for that?
Are you talking about the unit cost? So like the manufacturing cost, for example?
Yeah, to go through from the the conception stage, which is where they bring it to you, and then you get involved in the actual design of the product, and then you're getting that first prototype out the door. Is there kind of a cost that could be?
Yeah, I mean, through the design phase, it's a huge range, just because when the projects come to us, obviously it's various complexities of types of projects, like how much needs to go into this design. Right. Do we have to do R&D first? Are we trying to like understand if this will even work before we get into the design? That's true. Or is it a technology that is just a bona fide technology? We know, all right, we're just kind of pulling in different existing technologies, and this is going to be pretty easy. We know everything will work. It's just a matter of like laying out the PCB. It's a matter of designing the enclosure. So we have projects that range anywhere from as low as $50,000, for example, in development, all the way up through hundreds of thousands of dollars. And firmware can be surprisingly like a sneaky little expensive thing, depending on how complex something is. We've got a product we're working on right now, and we basically had to create its own operating system for it to run. Oh, wow. And so that was just a huge lift. And, it comes down to engineering hours. How much time are we going to have to spend? How much time is our firmware guy going to have to spend building this library, debugging it, testing, going through phases back and forth with the customer? I'm sorry, I gave you a huge range, but I hope I explained why I would have to.
The range you gave me was exactly what I would have pictured. I mean, I've talked to a couple guys that, on the podcast even, that have developed a product from just an idea in their head to, bring it into reality. And actually the guy I'm thinking of did the whole thing himself. He's a lawyer. He's he has a lot of flexibility in his schedule, and he kind of understood the IP sort of things, how to legally protect his idea. And he just loves learning. So he kind of learned how to design things. And then he found this partner that could do 3D printing. And it was pretty impressive that he was able to pull this off. But I asked him, how much did you spend on getting the first unit? I think he said like about $300,000. So honestly, like if you're going to spend $300,000, like have somebody like yourself that has, complex capabilities, that understands the legal, understands the design, et cetera, just do it.
Yeah, I mean, hey, I think that story is great. And we see people that do that. I think if you're able to get it to a certain stage and kind of get past that early R&D and just like make sure you know exactly what you want, that way when you are ready to like engage with someone like us, it is more of a question of like, all right, now we just have to put this all together. We have to just lay it out, and it's pretty straightforward. And that just saves us a lot of time. It saves the customer a lot of money and time and R&D, engineering hours, stuff like that. So, sometimes a little mix of scrappiness early on, and then starting to work with someone like us is certainly helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you see the same thing on, like Shark Tank. They want to see that you've made like significant steps with your product and, tested the market a little bit and things like that before you, get in bed with the pros. So when we're talking about overseas partners in China, Taiwan, any of the countries that you have relationships in, how do you look at companies there? Like, how do you decide who's going to be a good partner for you guys, to develop other people's products?
Yeah, it so much of it comes down to trust and relationships. So the factories in China, for example, that we work with, we've been working with a lot of them for 20 years, since the very beginning when we first started working out of Switzerland. And in fact, we have an office in China right now, and the two kind of people more running that office are the same people I worked with very early on 20 years ago. So that kind of trust and relationship, working with the factories over the years, understanding how they work, them understanding what we need from them is really important and really key. And then the other, going out, we've expanded our network into different countries, but that's taken time, right? So that's going out, that's visiting face to face, it's going out, breaking bread, talking with people, understanding their processes. I spent a lot of time in factories very early on. I went and lived in China for 3 months. I lived in the factory, where I was essentially, 12 hours a day, just kind of going through and learning everything possible I could, because I didn't have a technical background. But through that process, you really, you learn how a factory works, inside and out. And not all factories are created equally. You have quality management systems, you have checks and balances put through, you've got the management structure, just the general strength and financial standing of the company. There's all these different types of things that can affect what happens on the production line.
Right.
And so I think through that understanding of how these things work, it's helped us be better at identifying good partners, great partners, and then others that we would maybe want to avoid. Then again, it just comes down to building that trust, building that relationship, to where we're not acting as a kind of an external source, just buying things or just putting orders through. We are an extension of their company. They're an extension of ours. Our customers are an extension of us. We're trying to work together as one cohesive unit.
Yep.
To achieve the same goal, which is to have a really successful, no problem kind of production ongoing, and everybody's happy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I can definitely see the value in that, especially if you really don't have any experience in working with overseas companies, being able to understand all the customs and the communication and being able to analyze foreign financials and all that kind of stuff. I mean, you guys almost can be like a consultant to people that want to work, already know that they want the cost advantage of working overseas.
Exactly. I mean, we've been fine tuning our process over the past 20 years. And, in communication, lost in translation's real, right? Yeah. A yes in China may mean a no. Like there's so many different things that goes into it. And so that's just been a process that we've fine tuned and tweaked and gotten really good at over time.
Yeah, that's very impressive. So you must have known some Chinese to be able, or some Mandarin to be able to be in a factory and understand what's going on?
Well, I had a very good guide that spoke perfect English, which was super helpful.
Gotcha.
But I would say there were maybe two or three people out of hundreds that spoke English while I was there. So it behooved me to learn a little bit. Chinese is an extremely difficult language to learn. I speak fluent French. I was able to pick that up in my time in Switzerland. Chinese was another story. The Mandarin was very, very difficult. But little things like just hi, good morning, how's it going?
Yeah.
Asking directions, like where's the back? Just little things like that I picked up, and I think in any culture, I think there's just this appreciation when you at least try,
Absolutely.
and fail, but that's okay because
Yeah.
it's the attempt, and
Yeah.
a lot of hand gesturing and signals and smiling and probably not understanding everything, but doing our best.
Yeah. No, I found that too. I've always been a huge proponent of picking up little bits of different languages. Like I know some German, some Arabic, some Russian, some Spanish. So I'm always like, and I was in Iraq for 7 months when I was in the Marine Corps, and so we were advisors to the Iraqi army. So we had to get a little bit more Arabic and cultural training. And so, to this day, whenever, I'm in a cab or whatever, I'm always like, where are you from? Oh, Jordan or, Iraq. And I'll start talking to them. But they always crack me up because people that speak Arabic are so particular about pronunciation, like to an extreme degree. Cause I'm like, Achi Arabi. And they're like, and I'm like, Achi Arabi. And they're like, oh, Achi Arabi. And I'm like, that's what I just said,
I
dude.
literally, I know all about that. Because in Mandarin, right, you've got like so many different accents. If you say a word, the same exact word, but like with a different accent on the top, middle, back, front, it means something completely. It means something completely different. And I get it. I get
Yeah.
it.
So is IP as big of an issue in China as most of us believe it is? IP protection.
I, I mean, if I look at it from our perspective, it hasn't been an issue with us because we have a lot of protections in place to protect IP. So that's one of the reasons why we say you should work with us and not go directly to China, because it is a risk. If you're going to people, to factories that you don't know, you don't know their motive. You don't, sometimes you're not even working directly with the factory. There's a lot of different people involved. You've got sometimes even accidental. They're just kind of sitting around your work. You're trying to get quotes at different factories. You don't know who's overseeing it and handling it, right? So there's certainly some risks involved, and so you do want to kind of protect against that, right? So for us, it comes down to obviously heavily vetted and trusted relationships that we built. We do use NDAs both here, and we have Chinese NDAs. We lock it down as much as possible. We only share the information on a must need to know basis. We're keeping it all within one umbrella. We know where everything's going. There's no files being shared here left and right. And in some extreme cases, you can also, if you're really trying to be extra cautious, right, then you might have different factories that are doing different parts of the build. You'll keep the source code over here. You'll keep these things over here. So we're okay, great. You've got a PCB design, but have fun with that. What do you want to do with it? That's great. Right. Yeah. So I would say certainly there are risks out there, and you need to be very careful. Make sure you know who you're working with. But on a bigger sense, like I tell people, your IP is great, but if you're worried about someone else copying it, could I just could someone just take it and do a reverse engineer of it and break it down? And if that's it, if that's your business model, I'd say you don't have enough of a moat around your business in the first place.
Right.
So there's two sides of it, but we've never had an IP breach in our 20 years of doing business there, but we certainly have seen it out there. So it does exist, and you have to be careful.
Yeah, that's good advice. No, and that makes sense, kind of splitting up, making sure you're segregating the knowledge, because you're probably not going to have one factory make the product from start to finish. So that makes a lot of sense. Exactly. Well, I mean, great advice. It sounds like you are exactly what a lot of companies need, whether they're in the startup phase or they're, thinking of working overseas and, need somebody that knows what they're doing and knows how to do it. So yeah, I really appreciate the valuable insights you've shared.
Thank you so much. I mean, at the end of the day, hardware is hard, but it doesn't have to be lonely, right? So,
Right.
um, so we're just trying to make that journey a little bit smoother, help you avoid pitfalls, and manage through the chaos that comes with working in hardware.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, Nick, thanks a lot.